Welcome to the podcast Life After Addiction and Indictment. I'm your host, Steve Cloward, and I spent most of the last decade and well over $100,000 on coaches, consultants, masterminds, and events trying to figure out how to reclaim my life again. On this podcast, I'm going to share the tools, the tips, the tricks, and the hacks that allowed me to forgive myself so that I could reclaim my life again. I'll be interviewing experts in mindset, leadership, entrepreneurship, sales, marketing, branding, and so much more. I'm glad you're here. Sit back and relax and enjoy the show.
Let's go! This is Life After Addiction and Indictment.
Hey folks, welcome to Life After Addiction and Indictment. Today I've got a gentleman who's really going to give us a lot of insights and value from a financial side of things on, how to set yourself up so that you will have money, get you a blueprint, kind of an idea of what to do. Those of you that are younger, we'll try to cover, all kind of aspects of things. So depending on your situation, we'll hopefully provide value for you today. So I want to welcome to the show today, Jamie Lima. How you doing, Jamie?
Well, thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's my pleasure. So tell us a little bit about your background to start out. How'd you grow up? And then, when did you get into the financial world?
Well, Steve, it was a cold December day in 1970. I'm only kidding. Thanks again for having me. So I'll go back to, I think I've told this story a couple times in a couple conversations like this, but I'm originally from the East Coast. I'm a born and raised East Coast guy. I moved out to California when I was about 19 or 20 years old, with basically everything I owned in my car and $1,500 in my pocket. Wow. But if we go back to like earlier days when I really started having an understanding of finance, which is the world that I'm in now, really stemmed from the divorce that my parents went through when I was about 7 or 8 years old, and the challenges that they faced and so on. Even at that young age, I recognized that learning about money and understanding how money works and budgeting and things of that nature were really, really important, because if you don't understand those things, it can create a lot of stress in the family, which is some things that I saw early on as a kid. But then I kind of grew through that and I had an early, so when I was a young kid, my parents went through some very challenging, divorce, mostly predicated on money and some other things that I made me learn early on that I, should really focus on understanding how money works and budgeting and cash flow and things of that nature, because it can bring about a lot of stress to the family. And that's something that I didn't want to have my own kids one day have to deal with. But we worked through. That's
still one of the leading causes of divorce, isn't it?
It is.
Finance is a big one.
Finances is huge. And then
I always like to say, money doesn't buy you happiness, but it sure puts a good down payment on it.
Exactly. It can't buy you happiness, but can buy you a jet ski, right?
That's right.
So that was probably my first, real understanding of money and so on. And then, as I came to California and I, had to really fend for myself. I actually, worked in restaurants. I was a bellman. I did all kinds of odd jobs and side jobs just so I could stay.
Did you go out to California on your own then?
I did. Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty gutsy.
Yeah. I came out here. I had originally come out here with 3 friends of mine, and they all kind of dispersed over time, and it wasn't for them, I guess. And I wanted to stay. I was not shoveling snow in the winter. I knew early on that I did not like the cold weather. And when I went home for one winter and decided I've had enough, so I decided to come back west. I had met my now ex-wife at the time, and we started to raise a family and so on. And as I mentioned, I was working in restaurants and doing some odd jobs and things of that nature. But I realized I can't stay in this line of work and doing, kind of these odd jobs. I've got to learn how to, have a real job, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I always had a passion for investing and started to learn early on how to, do things in that realm. And I finished my degree in finance, and then I ended up getting a job at a company called Morgan Stanley, just on the ground level, so to speak. And that was where my career in this world began, is working with it. And I've never looked back. It's been an amazing ride so far.
Wow. So are you still with Morgan Stanley then?
No, I actually run my own company
Oh,
Woodson
cool.
Management. Yeah.
I knew that. I read that. Just wasn't thinking.
Yeah. I was at Morgan Stanley for about 5 or 6 years. I worked for a company called Fidelity Investments for almost 10. And then I decided about 3 years ago that I wanted to launch my own company. And my timing was impeccable. Smack dab in the middle of the pandemic, I decided I'm going to go from, having 450 clients to work with to zero.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wouldn't advise that to any of your listeners.
Well, I think that's actually good for, a lot of my audience, is because obviously you had the background, but now you're going to start your own business. I mean, there's a lot of different things that you have to know and understand to be able to do that. I mean, now you say you have no clients. Okay, well, now how do you generate leads? How do you convert those leads into customers? So there's a whole, other element to things besides having the knowledge and being the professional in the financial world that you are.
Absolutely. And I think that carries through in any line of work that you're in. I don't care
Absolutely.
if your listeners are, you're a truck driver, you're a mechanic, you're a financial planner, whatever. If you go out on your own and try to pave your own path, you should recognize that those few years are going to suck, frankly.
Yeah.
And now I'm, I just launched another company called Allegiant Divorce Solutions to help cool. our the people that are out there that are going through a divorce, preparing for a divorce, going through it, they're trying to recover from it. I'm a certified divorce financial analyst, along as being a certified financial planner. And because being a product of divorce, going through my own divorce myself in 2017, I just have a passion for that area. So you can regardless of where you're starting or whatever phase of your career you're in, if you can glean anything from this conversation, it's never too late to just reinvent yourself. Yeah,
I think that's what's so cool too, is people often don't get, how your trials or your problems, whatever, can end up being, such a benefit. You leverage the things that you've been through because you understand it, what people feel or what they're dealing with. So now it's like I always say, I don't, when I was dealing with addiction and stuff, I didn't ever want to talk to somebody. I didn't want to go talk to a counselor, because that made no sense unless they had been through addiction. Mm-hmm. Because Absolutely. You can learn all you want through books, but you're not going to get it. You just don't, it's a totally different level. So I think that's an important point for people to understand. It doesn't matter what you've been through. You can use that to be such a positive in your life. You just can't get stuck in the quagmire of self-defeat and discouragement and all that other stuff, because I've seen that happen too, where I have a couple family members that come to mind that are in that they always have a black cloud over their head, and 9 times out of 10 it's because the black cloud is following them because it's self-inflicted. Exactly. And if you can try to avoid doing that and making better decisions, just one better decision after the next, your life can certainly change. And I'm not perfect. I mean, I make mistakes every day. I learn something new every day. Some days I wake up and I'm like, what did I do to myself? But running 2 businesses and, trying to, feed a family, and it can be challenging, but you got to get through some of the stuff to get to where you're supposed to be. Yeah, it definitely can be tough. And that's the thing. It really comes down to, like I mentioned earlier, before we were recording, that that's why mindset's so important, because everybody's going to have crap. Life's tough, and you just have to be determined that you're never going to quit. That's why so many people fail, is because they give up before, most of the time they're right there before they break through too. That's exactly what's so hard to watch people do. I've seen it happen 1,000 times where they're literally getting to the point where they're going to push through the door to have that breakthrough. Yeah. And they're just like, this is too much. Yeah. So, well, that's cool. So you started about 3.5 years ago or so? Yeah, 3 years ago. I think it was, it takes a little while to get a company like ours off the ground because we have so many legal requirements and compliance requirements, but you have to deal with all the states and everything else to get registered and so on. But so that took about 3 or 4 months. It was literally April of 2020 that I decided to do this. COVID had just started, every government agency couldn't get out of its own way to push our paperwork through and so on. So I say like July 1st is kind of our go live date. So we are, 3 years and 5 days as we're recording this post launch. Wow. What are some of the maybe the early lessons or maybe hurdles that you ran into that, that maybe you might have learned something that would provide others value that are, ready to take that next step?
I would say if you're going to launch a company and you don't have a lot of money to spend doing it, it can still be done. You just have to be very, very cautious of who has their hand out along the way.
Yes.
What I found is that as soon as I went out and told the world that I was going to launch this company, every marketing guru, every lead generation company, every expert in whatever area, technology or compliance or insurance, you name it, it will start to come out of the woodwork.
So true.
And my problem was that I had that 4 months or so of downtime leading up to when we could actually go live. And it was kind of boring. So I was like, well, let me test out the software. Let me test out this thing. Let me try that. And all I did, I might as well just taken, thousands upon thousands of dollars and lit it on fire because it got me nowhere. And it was just a waste of money. So we were very, very cautious about who we partner with and how much money we spend and so on because of those lessons learned. And I know people that have built their businesses, they've bootstrapped it for years and just went very, very cheap. And you can do that. You can do it. You don't need, ignore that noise is what I would say. So regardless what industry you're in, you're going to have all these experts that are going to try to have a hand in your pocket. And you've got to be very careful of that.
That's such a huge point. And I dealt with exactly what you're talking about, and I know marketing fairly well. And it's amazing how many people that, I'll try to vet them and, pretty well. And like you said, there are a dime a dozen these days. And, in fact, when I learned 7 years ago, how to generate leads and stuff, I considered doing, taking on clients for lead gen and marketing. But the reason I didn't is because number one, I didn't want to be a marketer. That's the biggest thing. But equal to that was I didn't want to take on a client if I wasn't 100% sure I could deliver every time.
Yeah.
I wasn't willing to do that. And there's a lot of people who will, and I paid a few people myself that promised the sky and the moon, and then they claim they told you a different story than what they told you, and that's their excuse. And they don't even last 60 days.
Happens all the time.
Yep. And that's why I think, leading up to your expertise, but also no matter what it is you're doing, find somebody who's been through what you're about to do, that you can lean on. Find a mentor, somebody that can advise you so that they can save you that time and the money for making those mistakes.
Yeah. I had that luxury because the one thing that I feel the world that I'm in now is very different than the world that I used to be in. In such a way, in a way where the people that we used to work alongside at these big name companies, just because they were in the office next door to you doesn't mean they're not competing with you. It doesn't mean that they wouldn't cut you off of the feet if they had an opportunity to get out ahead of you.
Yeah.
With the registered investment advisory company that I run, the RIA world is much more is less competitive. Right.
Gotcha.
If you were and we're a member of a number of associations, and we have a lot of groups that we're part of and so on across our companies and our peers. If you owned your own company, there's a very real possibility that we would work together in some capacity. Or if I had a client that didn't fit kind of what we were doing, but you might be the best person, like I would refer them to you and vice versa. And, in a lot of the associations that we're part of, there are forums that we talk amongst each other and help each other out.
That's cool.
That doesn't happen in
that higher corporate level. Yeah.
No. And so that was a benefit that I had at the outset of finding people and just learning from them and understanding their mistakes and so on. And to your point, it's like, if you can find somebody like that in your life to be able to help be a lead block, so to speak, in whatever venture you're starting to undertake, it's a big deal. Yeah,
it's huge. Yep. Saves you a bunch of time and money, but it also most of the time it will get you closer to success quicker too, which is huge.
Exactly.
Looking to get going. So, well, cool. So let's shift gears and get more into the financial side of things. let's say from the younger generation, maybe the, mid to late 20s to mid 30s or so, maybe they're, finally working a pretty decent job. What kind of things would you recommend that, people do to kind of set themselves up for the future?
Course creators, say goodbye to intimidating software and eliminate multiple subscriptions and say hello to Backbone. Backbone helps course creators thrive with their all-in-one, easy-to-use sales and marketing platform. Backbone gives you all your automation in one place to capture, nurture, and turn more leads into customers. With Backbone, you get unlimited courses, membership sites, funnels, landing pages, surveys, and forms with our easy-to-use drag-and-drop features. That's not all. Backbone provides a full CRM and pipeline management, two-way SMS, workflow automations, call tracking, full analytics, built-in AI, 24/7 support, and so much more. Stop paying for multiple tools and put more money in your pocket with Backbone. Just go to backbonelms.io now to get your free 14-day trial. Backbone supports letthemlive.org to help defend the defenseless by donating 5% of each subscription every month. Jump over to backbonelms.io now to start your free trial today.
I think there are a lot of things. We work with a lot of clients that are in that phase of their lives, late 20s, early 30s, and even some people that are maybe along the a little bit older end of the spectrum in their 40s and 50s that are really seriously just starting off. Yeah. And it may sound very elementary and very basic, but the place we start the most is understanding their budget and really understanding what's coming in, what's going out, how variable is that, and then understanding what their income looks like. Because a lot of the folks we work with are their compensation comes from things like employee stock options and things of that nature, because they work for technology firms or they work for startups, and they don't have tons of money to give these people a base salary. So they give them a reasonable salary in most cases, but all of their compensation comes through other benefits. Yeah. So, we have to help them figure out that, because there's a lot of variability to that. So we have to help them figure out, like, okay, what does your lifestyle look like? How much do you have coming in? How much do you have going out? And what kind of variability is there, so we can manage to that? And again, it sounds very elementary, but I tell a story all the time about one gentleman that I work with for about 6 months on this project, and he went from a net negative $700 a month. He was burning $700 a month above and beyond what he was taking in, pulling from savings, to a net positive $2,000 a month that he's now saving for his down payment, the down payment on the house he's going to buy next year.
It's a massive swing.
Massive swing, all because we got very granular and monitored that budget every month. It was like pulling teeth to get him to do it the first couple of months. But once he saw there was momentum building, within 6 months or so, we had that thing dialed in. We use some pretty incredible financial planning software that allows people to link their accounts and manage those different aspects of their lives. And we could see exactly what was coming in and what was coming out and how it was categorized every month. And so that's where I would start, the basic stuff, because again, they don't teach you this stuff in school.
Exactly.
And that's our job. Our job is managing cash flow. I think the other thing is really understanding taxes. They don't teach you this stuff in school either. Like, based on how you're compensated, based on how the timing of your compensation, your understanding deductions, all those things can impact the amount of money that you have in your pocket every month, and whether you get a refund or whether you have to pay at the end of the year. Taxes is a huge, it's the thing that drives our clients nuts the most, I think.
Yeah, I'll bet.
And we talk about it with everybody.
Yeah, that's huge. And I mean, I can attest what I went through. When I kind of crashed 13 years ago and lost everything, there's times I made tons of money, but if you don't start with that budget, like, first of all, you have to track things, because how can you even keep score? How can you make a plan if you don't even know what's coming in and out, Yeah. And it's to me, I would say anybody that is so important, because I've done it both ways. And, if I had done that and planned things, and then gone through what I did, knowing because of that my federal indictment and stuff, they probably would have taken anything I had anyway, which they did. So maybe it wouldn't have mattered, but probably could have saved some things so that my family wasn't sucking wind, while I was gone so bad. And so, yeah, having a plan is just massive.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other thing I think we talk about a lot is estate planning, wills and trusts and things of that nature, which is very boring, very morbid stuff. It's not sexy. It's not the hot stock tip of the week. It's not, the outperforming the market by 10%, like some other advisors out there talk about. It's the boring stuff that gets, puts our clients in a much better position. And estate planning is another one. We're not attorneys. We don't build an estate plan for them, but we can walk them through the exercise. Nowadays, everything's digital, and we actually use a company called Trust and Will that's online. And as long as things are relatively simple, we can have those documents in place for somebody in 45 minutes.
Yeah, that's
and
huge.
It's just a few $100. It's not, $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 that some attorneys will charge. We can do it somewhere between, call it, $300 and $1,000, depending on what their situation calls for. And if something happens we're all getting older, right? And my wife and I have 5 kids between the two of us. And if something happens to one of the two of us, we want to make sure that the kids are taken care of.
Right.
And you control those things through having a proper estate plan. So those are I think those are the 3 key areas that we help out the most, which a lot of advisors will often overlook.
Yeah, it's crazy to me because of my age, I've, watching my dad and doing the things I used to do and currently do. It's like, it's so basic, but yet it's more important than anything, almost anything. And like you said, the saddest part is this should be the top of what you learn in high school, still start in junior high and then in high school. Yeah. And you get thrown out into the workforce and, into adult life, and you have no idea how to balance checkbook, no idea how to deal with money, budgets, any of that. And so to me, it's a massive thing. And particularly, it just is that much more important when you're starting out in business and how to manage things and how to, be able to forecast and be able to know what you can do, when you can, or when you should and shouldn't do things. And so it's a huge, huge thing. And I think having someone like you is a massive help.
I say all the time that we should, in order for you to graduate high school, you should learn how to balance a checkbook, and you should have worked 1 semester in a retail environment.
That would be,
you know how to manage your money, and you know how to talk to people and have interpersonal relationships and customer service and all those things. And it could solve half the world's problems.
I agree. No question. Yeah. I can't remember where I heard it, but it was recent. Kind of the age group we're talking about, that, mid-20s to mid-30s. And frankly, the rest of society is probably the worst financial shape, particularly with credit card debt in world history.
Yeah,
it's just massive. I mean, yeah, we've gone through some crazy times, but at the same time, you can use excuses or you can focus on what you can do and solve problems. And, so there's a balance there, but yeah, you get into those kind of problems, and I've been in that space before, and you look at what you're getting absolutely raped, by these credit card fees and stuff. And what you're paying annually is just absolutely sick. In fact, to me, it's illegal, but that's a whole nother topic. Yeah. Where do you see things at from a financial standpoint? I mean, do you advise any of your clients as far as, any precious metals, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, we don't go the whole guns and ammo route, right? Like we do work with such a young crowd. They have, 20, 30, 50 years that they have to plan for their financial future. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not one of those that's just like, I'm going to like bunker and like hunker down. Right. It's just not me and not anything I want for my family, my clients' lives. But when we put a financial plan in place, and we've looked at, income, expenses, income, assets, liabilities, and expenses, we will put a plan in place for those clients. And then we stress test that plan against a number of different scenarios: high inflation, Social Security running out, market meltdown, you name it. And we stressed, and the reason being is because we want to make sure we have contingency planning in place. right?
Awesome.
We're gonna hope for the best, but we're gonna plan for the worst is effectively what we're trying to do, and get them on a nice smooth ride to get to wherever they're going. And a lot of that, then that introduces the investment strategy discussion that we have with a lot of them. And we don't take on a lot of exorbitant risk. Our job is to build a portfolio for them that's going to align with the goals and objectives that they have, and based on what the plan tells us we should do. And we do that. As far as the overall economic environment, I remember when I had one of I think it was probably the first year that I was at Morgan Stanley. And there was a gentleman named Don. He's an amazing man, hilarious, but he was on the older end of the spectrum, getting ready to retire. And he had been in the business for a very long time.
Uh-huh.
And when I went into his office in one of the very first engagements that I had with him, I remember looking on his desk and there was a sign that said, "Every day is a bad day to invest." And I laughed about it at that time because it just reminded, like, he's, I wouldn't say he was crotchety, but, you could tell he'd been around the block for a while, and he knew, he had dealt with some stuff.
Yeah.
But I still think about that today, because if you look back, even over this, you look back at since the Great Recession, right? 2008, 2009, we've had peak inflation. We've had high interest rates. We've had low interest rates. We've had Democratic. We've had Republican presidents. We've had, the wrapping up a 20-year war. We've had Russia, Ukraine. We've had crazy political dictators.
Yeah.
All pandemics, you name it. And we're still here.
Yeah.
So what would make you think that something that's going to come that may or may not actually come to fruition tomorrow is going to completely derail us and send us back to the 16th century? I just don't understand. I don't understand how people can make.
I don't see that ever.
It's just, and people do it all the time. And our job as advisors to walk them through that similar type of discussion, build a plan that's going to be as rock solid as possible, and help them plan for contingencies. So, I mean, I have no idea if the market's going to be up, down, or sideways tomorrow, but I know that's high probability that in 10 years it's going to be higher. So we're going to stick with it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, history has pretty much proven that. I mean,
absolutely,
over and over. I mean, history seems to repeat itself. So, yeah, I mean, folks, the things that he said, were music to my ears, because I've talked to and been around several financial planners in my life, and to hear that they're looking at all the contingency, potential things that could take place, and making sure your plan is still going to take care of you through, scenario B, C, and D. To me, that's huge. Yeah. I don't know if this is true in your industry and you've experienced, but my personal experience is that there's too many planners out there that are just focused on how they can make their money, their fees. And that is something that, has always bothered me. Not about financial planners in general, but people I know in particular, and seen it. My dad was, very successful dentist and very successful real estate developer. And you got to ask the question, well, why are you changing financial planners? 2 or 3 times that I knew of, over 20 years. There's got to be a reason. He didn't feel like he was being taken care of, and it's just crazy.
You brought up an amazing point. And as we were talking about the last brief topic there, I was thinking about this and trying to figure out how to explain this the best way possible. But the difference between my firm and a lot of firms out there versus the old school way of doing things is that we are what's considered a fee-only wealth management company. And what that means is that we avoid conflicts of interest at all costs. We are not compensated by anyone other than you as the client. We are 100% independent, product and platform agnostic. So
that's huge.
I don't have this big broker dealer company that I have to hit sales quotas with to be able to be on their platform. We don't have, if you need insurance and it makes sense for the part of your plan, even though I have an insurance license, I'm not going to sell it to you because there's a conflict of interest. We would farm that out.
That's huge. Yeah,
Same thing with estate planning. We don't even use internal estate planning or tax planning and tax preparation services. We use third parties that we've used in partnership with, and there's no revenue sharing or compensation across those platforms in order to keep us fee only. So if somebody comes to us and needs the help, the only fee they're going to pay is the fee that we would charge them. And it's literally outlined in black and white what that fee is going to be. And there are no other costs. That's the way, in my opinion, doing this almost 20 years, that is the way it should be done, because it avoids that conflict of interest. You go to some insurance person, and this happens all the time, guys, listening to this. Listen, those TikTok financial advisors out there that are telling you that every problem can be solved with insurance. It's complete BS, because first off, they're probably not even licensed to sell it. They probably don't understand how it works. And if they are licensed to sell it, and you go buy that stuff from that garbage from them, they are making so much money off it. So much money off of it. Like 6 to 8%, sometimes 10% commissions on those things. And 9 times out of 10, you as the client, you as the purchaser of that product, is going to be left behind, because the returns, the fees, and everything else that are embedded in there always put you behind the 8 ball, so to speak. And it's just like, do not listen to those guys. Like, if they're not licensed financial planner, certified financial planner, do not listen to them.
To me, that says just a whole ton about, your character and what you're focused on. And that is, any real smart businessman that's looking to build something for real is focused on the customer. Of course, we all have to make money, but if it's just transparent and right there in the open, and like I said, not having a conflict, that's huge. Because I know plenty of guys that are doing the stuff, in your industry, and they're, they make fees every time they move stuff, and so it may not be in your benefit, but they're moving it. A lot of them are telling you it is beneficial. We got to move you over here. We got to put this money over there, because they're making a pop every time they do it.
Why do you think when you go to Edward Jones or Fidelity Investments and you open up your account statement, they're all Edward Jones or Fidelity funds in your portfolio?
Yeah, exactly. Problem right there. So yeah, that to me, that says a whole lot about who you are and what you're doing. So I appreciate that. That's huge, folks. So if you're looking to do something, that's why we've got Jamie on here, so that you can, fill them out. I like to, most of the way I do things is I go off my gut, my instinct, the way I feel. And I think that's a huge thing. So, listen to this podcast, and if you need to, go back and listen to it again and hear what he's saying, because I think there's massive value in what he's talking about. And you guys, I would assume you cover all 50 states.
100%. Every state. I'd prefer not to work in Louisiana. That state is very, very difficult, because they have a lot of French laws that we have to abide by, and they make it very complex. So let's call it 49 states. We don't have any clients in Louisiana yet, so we could skip over Louisiana for the time being. But we're in we'll call it 49 states, and we work 100% virtually.
That's
so
great.
The pandemic was a blessing to us. We now work. We have clients all over the Eastern Seaboard, all over the West Coast, Texas, Arizona, Nevada. We're all over the place.
That's cool.
And there's nothing we can do. There's nothing we could have done in the old days, face to face, kneecap to kneecap in our offices, that we can't do in this environment. It makes things so much more effective and efficient. Think about it. I'm just outside of San Diego, California, and if you try to get 4:00 on a Wednesday or Thursday afternoon to go to your financial advisor's office, you're in the car for 3 hours for a 45-minute conversation. Ridiculous. When you could be doing this from your couch.
Yeah. That's such a huge point, because I think that COVID did have a lot of benefits. It all depends on what we want to focus on. And, not only large companies, but, there's so many different things you can do in this world today. And literally, as long as you've got an internet connection, a laptop, you can choose where you want to work from. Can be in a totally different country, anywhere in the world. And so it's to me, it's a huge blessing. And there's so many options and ways to make money. And so, if you're going to get after it and go make that money, then you need to make sure that you've got someone like Jamie in your corner to help you keep it, and give you some input and advice as you're looking to invest and do different things, so that you can see, because one of the biggest things that I failed at is, you don't want to get involved in things based on emotion, and that's the worst thing you can do. And so having someone else's perspective, say that you can throw out the emotion, we can't see what we can't see, and even if you feel like you don't have emotion in it, you still maybe have some blinders on that somebody else is going to be able to at least point out to you, so that if you do make the decision, you do have all the information, because you can vet it and think you have it all, but maybe you don't because you just missed something. You're not seeing something.
Absolutely. I have 5 other advisors on the team. We have about 130, 140 years of experience across the entire team. So if there's something that somebody brings to me that I don't understand, or I'm a little bit fuzzy on because it's been a while since I've dealt with that particular thing, we have a ton of resources just on the team here that we can tap into to be able to usually get an answer for whatever question we have. And if I'm not a fit as an advisor, somebody wants to work with a woman, or somebody wants to work with somebody that's, closer to their city, or older, younger, better looking, who knows, we can usually, find a fit. So, and we do, every advisor on my team does things, a little bit differently from a compensation perspective and from a fee perspective. So if the budget is tight and somebody needs help, we can usually find a fit on the team to make sure that they can get the support that they need.
Yeah, that's cool. Plus, sounds like to me as well is, let's just say that for whatever reason, maybe there wasn't a fit. Mm-hmm. I feel like you and probably your team, if they're part of your team, you're going to tell somebody that. And yeah. And like you said, as we talked beforehand, you have network that you're working with. And so that's where the game changes, when you can have good referral type partners that will do business back and forth, because that's the best way to do business anyway, is, have other people that are pushing business back and forth to each other. And if we could all get that concept, boy, life would be a lot simpler and easier, and people would, do a lot better.
Happens all the time. We get referrals from other firms. We give referrals to other firms. It's just so different.
Yeah. People they're doing that scarcity mindset. That's something that's always bothered me. Maybe I was just lucky because my grandfather, my dad both taught me totally opposite of that. Like I have some decent sales teams in one of my businesses, and it's interesting to watch how some, talk to me about certain things and just excuses, right? It's like, I've always just had the philosophy that I have zero competition. Doesn't matter what industry I'm in, doesn't matter anything like that. The only competition I have is me. Nobody has the power over me to do better than me. That's up to me, and I also think that by doing things right, you then are just having that, call it what you want, universal laws, karma, whatever, that ends up, I call it the boomerang. No matter what you put out is going to come back.
Absolutely.
Do you want to, have a nice, smooth, soft boomerang, or do you want something coming back and chopping your neck off? It's that's just the way it seems to me that things work in the world.
Yeah, and we do a ton of pro bono work throughout the course of the year to help people that are really struggling. Awesome. And I've been doing a lot of divorce. I think I have 7 cases right now that we're working on the divorce financial planning that are all pro bono, because people need help. We're here to help them. And then hopefully that comes back in spades later on. We do it because it feels good and it's the right thing to do. But what tends to happen is to your point, it's the boomerang effect. Whatever we put out comes back to us. And if we can all keep doing more of that, I think the world will be a better place.
Yeah, that's to me, that's one of the biggest things that we need in this world. Call it what you want, call it the right thing, call it love, whatever you want. But I've said it a million times on this podcast. There's nothing more that fills me up more than helping somebody. And most of the time, helping that person has zero to do with any money, and it doesn't matter. There's just no amount of money that can replace that. But once again, we all have to make money. There's nothing wrong with making it. There's nothing wrong with making a lot of it, as long as it's win-win and you're not screwing somebody.
Exactly.
So, well, man, this has been really valuable, Jamie. I think that regardless of age and situation, some of the things you talked about to me are just, you can call them basic, you can call them building blocks, but to me, they're probably the most valuable things, because without it, you're just going to continue to struggle. You're going to continue to be chasing, waiting for that paycheck to come in week after week. And that's just no way to live. Life's already tough enough. If you can eliminate the real financial stresses, that definitely can make a big difference in life. You still have to, being happy is still a choice, in my opinion, but if you can relieve that pressure, boy, it makes that game a lot easier.
I couldn't agree more.
What do you have any final thoughts or anything that you'd like to share that we haven't covered? And then tell people, where they can find you. And of course, I'll have all that information noted in the description as well.
Yeah, no, I think we covered a lot. I mean, it feels like we covered a lot of ground in 40-ish minutes here or so, but I think it just goes back to our earlier comments. We regardless of where you're at, station of life, how much money you have, career, divorce, no divorce, all those things that we talked about, we're our own worst enemy. Our own worst enemy. I'm guilty of it too. I mean, I'm catching myself all the time. Luckily, I remarried a few years ago, and second go around is the best time for sure. But she's very, very positive. Like everything is huge. Positive.
Yeah.
And I did not grow up that way. It's not in my inherent nature as a person, because I'm more of a pragmatic kind of person, right?
Yeah.
But she's reminded me 1,000 times, like, to get out of your own way, and just stay positive, and good things will happen. And I think if we can all operate in that respect and keep stop self-sabotaging ourselves, that's where the goodness happens. So, if anybody out there is struggling or trying to figure out what the next move is, reach out to me, even if it's not even finance related, and somebody needs to talk and be put on the right path forward, or maybe I have a resource that they could leverage. I'm certainly happy to do so. They can.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So you asked about how to contact me. So, all my contact information is on our website.
Perfect.
We have two different companies. One being Woodson Wealth Management, which is WOODSONWM. We're at the base of Mount Woodson here in San Diego, so that's where the name comes from, and the whole mountain theme. It's really more of a big hill versus a mountain, but you get it. So you can go to woodsonwm.com, look for me on there under the team page. All of my contact info is there: email, phone number, the whole thing. And then my divorce planning company is Allegiant Divorce Solutions. Allegiant Divorce Solutions, and that's allegiantds.com, which will lead you to some of the resources we have if somebody's going through a divorce or planning on going through one, or has gone through one and they need help fixing their finances. We can help there too. So
awesome.
Happy to help.
That's great. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I think this has been, one of the episodes is probably the most valuable to the listeners, from just knowing the life I went through financially, and, and how important it is. And like you say, we don't know that because we're not taught it. It's not brought to our attention. And, life gets in the way when you do think about it. At least I allowed it to, even though I watched my dad, who was very good at it. I just kept making excuses. I was making great money. I thought I'll just keep making that money. And then when that stops, you're in deep shit, excuse my language, you're screwed. So anyway, well, appreciate it, man. And like I said, I'll have all your information in the show notes, and folks, reach out to him. And if you feel there's any value in this episode, please share it with your family, friends. Jump on over to Apple, give us a 5-star review if you wouldn't mind. That'll help us with the algorithm so people will see this show so that they can find Jamie. Would appreciate that. And thanks for tuning in. Take care.